when I was a child, very first thing that my mom told me was not to even whisper because the birds and mice could hear me. If somebody say one wrong thing, it kills entire 3 generations of that family. There was no internet, one channel on TV.
What were the subjects you guys took in school?
Even like learning math was like, there are 4 American bastards. You kill 2 of them. Then how many American bastards left to kill? We don't play with the Barbie dolls. We play with tanks. Even kids have to go see the public execution.
My mind, my imagination, I just went there. So for me, it's tough to kind of come back. But painful stuff you talk about that doesn't sound real to the average person.
If you see the satellite photo, North Korea is literally the darkest place on earth. And in the posters, how American looked like was green eyes and humongous nose.
So in America, the government makes money through taxes. How does North Korea make money?
North Korea is not a poor country. They sell drugs, they sell missiles, they steal a lot of money through hacking. They sell their people. China has a responsibility to protect us, but they capture us negotiating our price like dogs. There is no dignity, there is no freedom for us in China.
The only way to get anything done with North Korea is to get things done with China.
This regime kept this going for over 70 years. Do you know how many North Korean defectors right now in America? Over 70 years of time? 200.
My guest today has, I would say, the most interesting story we've ever had on Valuetainment. You'll find out here in a minute why. Her name is Yeon-mi Park. She wrote a book called In Order to Live. She escaped North Korea at 13 years old, found her way to China, eventually South Korea, eventually Dublin, US, all over the place. And she's now resides in US. She gave a talk back in 2014 at the One Young World in Dublin, which within 2 days, her 8-minute talk got 50 million views. Let me say this one more time. 50 million views in 2 days. And from there, she's been a phenomenon because she's given us, the world, a glimpse of what it really is like to live in North Korea, not from what MSNBC tells us, not from what CNN tells us, not from what Fox tells us, her point of view of what it was like living there for 13 years. And so with that being said, Yeon-mi Park, thank you so much for being a guest on Valuetainment.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a real honor to be on your show.
It's great to have you. So Yeon-mi, let's go back. For those of us who have never visited North Korea, all we've seen is the videos. All we've seen is, we've read about it. We've seen articles about it. We've seen different things about it. What was it like for you growing up in North Korea?
Yeah, so I think that was almost like the biggest challenge for me to talk about my experience being in North Korea is that sometimes I felt like it's even easier to explain about Mars or the moon to Americans than North Korea. Like North Korea is a country that has so many pieces, right? The life that Kim Jong-un, the dictator, has is absolutely different from the people's lives that I had and my friends had. So I think today I am only going to talk about the people who are not in that privileged, 1% class, but the majority of North Koreans, how they are actually surviving every day. I think it's just almost like unimaginable. Everyday life is a struggle. In North Korea, when I was growing up, there were even no words for depression. So, or even stress. So as I growing up as a child, when I came to South Korea, they told me like stress is like very big, cause for something. Depression is the like big main cause for suicide. And I was like, what is that? And you don't know what stress is? Like what, you don't know what depression is? And in North Korea, the regime didn't put that words in the dictionary for us. So, imagine that in socialist paradise, how can you possibly stressed? How can you be possibly depressed? But in our real life is a struggle, but we just don't know how to put those like concepts into words. I think, when I was a child, very first thing that my mom told me was not to even whisper because the birds and mice could hear me. And as a young girl, the first thing I learned is that the most dangerous thing in my body that I got is my tongue. What if I slip some wrong word? That is not gonna only kill me, that is not gonna only kill my family, it is going to kill 3 generations of my family. If somebody say one wrong thing, political statement, it's not gonna just kill that person, it kills entire 3 generations of that family. And that is like, so in that sense, I never knew what, freedom of speech was. I somehow thought that's how a normal world was, because there was no internet. Obviously, I never heard the word internet in North Korea. There is only one channel on TV, 24 hours, that is telling us how wonderful the socialist paradise is and how bad our American bastards enemies are. And I remember when I came to America, going to Walmart's and going to see this like section of magazines, right? They have living like magazine, fashion magazine, cook magazine. I never seen any kind of magazine in North Korea. Like I never seen a cookbook. There's like I never heard of what modeling was. Like there's no fashion magazine. The regime, the government telling us what to wear, what kind of haircut you can have, what kind of makeup you can have, what kind of pants you can wear, what kind of song you can sing, what kind of movie you can watch, what kind of dance you can dance. Every little thing is determined by the regime, even before I was born. And even where I live, who I can marry, what can I do in life is determined by my political class in the country. So telling Americans that although people who free people, like they think like you choose what major you study, what clothes you wear, everything for them is so natural. But coming from North Korea, even picking up a pants was a struggle for me. Like how I choose among like 10 different pants they are selling, how do I choose like what I like? Because in North Korea nobody asked me like what do I think.
That's wild when you think about it, by the way, to have that kind of an experience. And did you experience any? I know you said the most powerful weapon you have is your tongue, because if you say something, it could hurt 3 generations, not just yourself, your parents, your grandparents, et cetera, et cetera. But you know, there has to be an element of somebody being rebellious. And if there was somebody that was rebellious, if you do remember, what typically happened to somebody that was rebellious against a regime like that?
So like in school, right? At school, I did go to school. I didn't learn about the revolution or democracy or none of that. Things that I learned is like how brave, like what kind of miracles our dear leader can do, and how bad the West, the democracy, the world was. And everything was brainwashing in school. Like even like learning math was like there are 4 American bastards. You kill 2 of them. Then how many American bastards left to kill? At like 5, 6 years old, you say 2 American bastards. And the game that you play, we don't play with the Barbie dolls. We don't play some Legos. We play with tanks. We use mud and build tanks and say the teacher is like, why did you build this tank? I was like, I built this tank because I want to kill our enemies and be loyal to our dear leader. And like we build this snowman in school, and we bring like hot boiling water and pour on top of the snowman, and that snowman we make like American monster, and we say, hey, American enemies are gone. So that's the education. So there was really no concept of being distant or being a rebellious, but I'm sure there was. That's why you constantly see these public executions and see this political prison camp. People in our neighborhoods disappear all the time, and we always have to go to see public trial and public execution. In North Korea there's no such a thing called like concept of minor. Even you're like 5, 7 years old, if the school teachers say you have to go see public execution when someone gets shot in front of your eyes, even kids have to go see the public execution. And so in that situation, I think in some other ways we were rebellious, like watching foreign DVDs, and that kills us. But people still risking their lives. Imagine like right now we are risking our life or watching or some kind of movie. And in North Korea, people actually literally risking their lives to watch a movie from the free world.
What were some of the by the way, in my mind, my imagination, I just went there, so for me it's tough to kind of come back, but what were the topics and the subjects you had in school? So did you have world history? Did you have what were the topics, what were the subjects you guys took in school?
So again, like Kim Jong-un, he went to school in Switzerland. So these most elite kids do go to school in Switzerland, in Moscow, in China, in Europe, everywhere, in Germany. But the most of the bottom class, like which is like 90-80% of population, aren't that lucky. So I'm not talking about the majority of people in school. I didn't learn about the like Big Bang or revolution. I mean the evolution of human history. I never even seen the map of the world, so I never knew like how the world looked like. I never knew how many planets. Like, of course, I had no idea Mars or like all these like different planets, and I never even knew actually you exist as an Iranian. I never knew like there were like different races existed. They told us about Americans, but they only, I mean, we don't have internet and we cannot like get other books. So all we can rely on is like posters that was provided by the regime. And in the posters, how American looked like was with green eyes and humongous nose. And they say they are like cold-blooded creatures. So I never knew actually the Americans were like warm-blooded humans. They said they were like monsters. And so I did not know like they were like African Americans, they are like Middle Easterners, all these different race. So in school it was really like they taught us about American monsters, Japanese imperialists, and maybe China, but not so much. And all about the, we have to memorize the birthday of their leaders, what year they did what year did what. Literally, our school curriculum is dedicated to learn about like the greatness of the dear leaders. And what is like they literally copy the Bible if you think about it. So they put Kim Il Sung as the God who loved us, who was chosen by this universe and loves us so much. He gave us his son Kim Jong Il, which is Jesus. And their body dies like Jesus, but their spirit is with us forever. And when we die, we become with them and we go like eternal paradise with them. So that's why they can like brainwash us to think. Even in my thoughts, they can read my thoughts like God, you know? It was like literally they just like copy the Bible, put their names, and made us like read and learn Bible in school, and become just like complete like brainwashed.
So did you say, do you remember the enemy number one was US, number two was Japan? Did you say three is somewhat China, or?
It was they all go back and forth. They
Okay.
said sometimes China helped us, but sometimes like China has no principle. They like gave up and gave up the communists like all that wonderfulness and like gave into the corrupt capitalism. But they were like going back and forth on China, but they were consistently hating America and Japan from the very beginning. I remember.
Who made the most money in North Korea? Meaning, was it business owners? Was it doctors? Who was it that made the most money?
So doctor salary, the medical doctor salary is $1. And you cannot buy even few kilograms of rice with that. So, so in North Korea, you have to be corrupt. The government jobs is not gonna, the salary you get from your job is never gonna feed you even like 2 days yourself. So only way to people to survive is corrupt, and that is why all these government officials are taking advantage and abusing people to even for them to be greedy and for us to be surviving in any way possible. So people in the bottom, I grew up eating grasshoppers. That was only my source of protein I could get. I was eating plants. I was literally finding everything I could to find food in nature. I didn't grow up with like a refrigerator. I didn't grow up like washing machine. I went to like river in the summer to take a bath in the river and washing my clothes there. And in the winter time we don't take a bath. Maybe we take once before the New Year's. And like our life is like I don't know how people lived in 15th, 16th century. Actually, I read in textbooks, but probably close to that ancient time. Like it's like I think the world clock going forward, but when you look at the North Korean people's clock, it's like going backwards. If you see the satellite photo, North Korea is literally the darkest place on earth. Like you don't see any electricity in North Korea other than Pyongyang. Like you should like Google like photo and see what it looks like in North Korea. Like it is the darkest place. And so people's lives are very, very just like there's no way like people like I escaped for hunger. I risked my life for a bowl of rice. I didn't escape to be free. I didn't even know what freedom was. Like in North Korea, as I said, like there's no concept of human rights. So when I heard like animals' rights, I couldn't like believe like how come animals have rights while in North Korea people don't even know they have rights as a humans. And they don't teach us about freedom or individual rights or none of that. So when I was escaping, I was just literally wondering if I go to China, which is at nighttime. When I was in North Korea, we don't have electricity, but China had electricity. So far away, I could see electricity coming from China. And I thought maybe if I go where the lights were, I might find something to eat. And that's why I escaped and I came here all the way here. But that is how most people are living in North Korea right now.
I think you said somewhere where once you had Kim Jong-un that saw 80 people who were either watching a movie or they were reading the Bible. What happened with that story, and did you witness it yourself?
It was after I escaped in Wonsan, I think, area. There were almost like 100 people. He just executed them all in in the big stadium, brought everybody in that town. And their crimes were like watching foreign DVDs, reading Bible, and I think that was it really, just like watching foreign movies and just reading Bible somehow secretly they did, and that is the crime people being executed in North Korea right now.
What did you look forward to as a kid? What was exciting for you? Like what was fun? Oh, I can't wait to go do this with my sister, my dad, my mom. What was it that you look forward to?
I mean, there's like when you're born in North Korea, like life is a struggle. So you don't really expect life to be a happy thing or something to be nice. I think my dream as a child was eating a bucket of bread. So I never like really ate until I felt like full. So I never knew like how much I actually could eat and then be satisfied with it. So I actually thought when I was a child, like I could eat the mountain of like bread. Maybe I will never get full because I was always hungry and I always like, betting these games with my sister. Like I can like eat 10,000 bread, and my sister like I can eat 1 million bread. Like I can eat more than you. So my dream was like having a one bucket of bread, and that was an unimaginable thing to do in North Korea. We are so poor, we can never do that. So I just never knew I was going to achieve my dream that early.
Did you ever get a chance to watch movies there? Because in Iran, they were bootlegging, people were bringing movies in and all that stuff. Were you able to watch any movies when you were in North Korea?
Yeah, I did. I watched Titanic, and That was the point. It wasn't like changed my mind or none of that. You're so brainwashed. Like it takes a long time to de-brainwash somebody too, right? And I think I watched the movie, and first time I was watching Titanic, I was just so confused. Why anyone make a movie out of such a shameful story? Like in North Korea, there's no movie, no songs, no books about love story, and the like word love doesn't exist. I never seen my father saying "I love you" to my mom, or my parents never told me they loved me. Only love that we knew was a written word that we could use to describe our feelings to only the leader. It wasn't a word that we can use to describe our feelings to another human being. So watching that movie, like where we are now allowed to do the kissing or holding hands in public, I was so shocked. Like they are so corrupt. Why would you make a movie out of such a shameful story? And then it was an art. Like you see this man, like man dies for love, and that eventually maybe you can actually die for someone other than the leader or the revolution, because every movie that I was seeing until that point was like you supposed to die for the dear leader, and that was the most honorable death you can get. So I think that's the time when I got really tiny little taste of freedom.
So in America, the government makes money through taxes, right? Companies have they create jobs. There's corporate taxes, there's sales tax, there's different kind of tax. And because the citizens are, they make $100,000, they pay $35,000 in taxes. Companies, they run a company, they pay 23% in taxes. Where does revenue come for North Korea to do the things that they want to do? How does North Korea make money?
Wow, where do you want me to begin? They sell drugs, so they literally plant drugs. They are the biggest black market for weapons to the Middle East. They sell missiles. They sell drugs. They sell their people. They do human trafficking. The regime does. Do you know all this? Go to Africa. There are a lot of dictators. North Korea sent their workers, slave workers, to build statues for African dictators. And the regime sent these people to go to Siberia to cut all those woods, send them to Qatar, send them to Poland, a lot of European countries, send them to China, and the regime gets all the money, but these people are in this kind of, when they're in the foreign place, a camp, and they just work for the dear leader. And so human trafficking, drug selling, weapon selling, and they do a lot of hacking, cybersecurity. They steal a lot of money through hacking. They generate billions of dollars now through hacking, cyber. So that's why I'm saying, in North Korea, you have no idea what a harm that North Korea is inflicting in on the world. People think, oh, it's nobody's business. I'm not dictated by Kim Jong-un. It's not my business. But no, North Korea raising these armies of cyber attackers. They are all this hacking and stealing and selling weapons, selling drugs, and also the people in North Korea are like free slaves. The regime, as I said, they pay $1 to a doctor. And what do you think they're gonna pay to in North Korea? A man needs to serve in the military, mandatory military service. Every man who is above 138 centimeters. Do you know how that short is? 138 centimeters. I'm not sure. Is that even 4 feet?
How tall is 138 centimeters? It's not tall. I mean, I'm 190. So what is 138? 138 is the 4'8".
So because of your so malnourished, our height is so short now. You're getting short and short, and the regime says if anyone is above 138 centimeter needs to go to military for 13 years. And during the military service, 13 years, you are the farmer, you are the constructor, you do every manual labor, and they don't even feed you. So you are completely malnourished, and that is how the regime make money, by owning 25 million slaves. You make them hackers. You test on them like body medical tests on them. You sell all crazy things on them. You just abuse them and you sell them and you use them, and that's how the dictator can be the god of 21st century.
Yeah, let me ask you this. When they send these folks out, the slaves out to go help Siberia, build a statue in Africa and all this stuff, how do they hold them accountable so they don't escape and not come back?
So, right, they check through their family backgrounds. They make sure their family has no like bad, political prisoners. So they check rigorously their family like backgrounds, how loyal they were, and they hold their families as a hostage. So they keep their children.
Makes sense.
Yeah, when this man goes to foreign things, they have to be married and have kids.
That makes sense.
Yeah, they keep their child and mother, wife, and everybody as a hostage. And they also, when they go to the foreign place, it's not like they are mingled to that foreign society. They build their own camp and keep it. All those banners, all those like self-criticism session, and they cannot go outside the camp. There are like secret police going with them. So when they go to abroad, it's not like they're like us, can go to supermarket whenever they want. They're in the camp and they're completely controlled by the regime, even when they're like out abroad.
So it's, you listen to this stuff and the average viewer is going to say, this sounds like a movie. There's no way this is really happening. And all this stuff that you're talking about is still happening till today. Yes.
Yeah.
It's
happening right now. It is.
Okay. So what got you, I know with your father, if you want to share what happened with your father's health, but what got you to the point as a 13-year-old kid to say, I'm leaving, I can't do this anymore, to go find food? What got you to that breaking point to leave?
It was hunger. I mean, like I remember, like if you leave the potatoes out, it becomes frozen outside and becomes like brown and dark, and that was only our source of food by the time when you're leaving. And North Korea is a very cold place, especially where we were, like Haesan. It can like get to like minus 37 Celsius at night and in the winter time. And there's no like heating, there's no nothing. And if you go to mountains, all the like trees were gone because people had to find something in nature to make fire and cook food. And by the time we were at that point, we just couldn't find it anymore, like frozen potatoes. And that's why I thought, like, oh, what do we do? And you see people like are starving to death. You see, and all I could see was, luckily I was in the border area of North Korea. And I thought that was maybe last thing I'm gonna do before I die. I will try to go cross that river to China, and they had all the lights. Maybe I can knock on somebody's door, ask for food. They might be nice to give us some food. Because in North Korea, I heard some like rumors that in China, dogs eating rice. And I thought like it's almost like the humor, like rumor you hear, like there are like people living on Mars, and it was like aliens exist, like that kind of rumor. I was like, how can possibly dogs eating rice in China? So let me go see China and see if that's real, and if I can get like some bowl of rice. And when you're so hungry, like you actually want to die when you're eating. When you're hungry, you like loses your humanity. You're not human. You're not civil. The civility is only possible when you are fed. When you're that hungry, it's just, no matter what, you just want to eat. That's like, if you don't eat, you're gonna die. That's human instinct. So it was like almost, there's almost saying in North Korea, even the ghosts who died while they're eating, they don't have any wishes. So we don't feel bad for someone who were dying while they were eating. That's okay. If the earthquake hits them, as long as they were eating, it's okay. Wow. And that's how food is like a central part for North Koreans to be. And the regime especially, I think that is the thing I want to mention to people, is that they think North Korean is like poor. That is why people are starving. North Korea is not a poor country. They build like these most advanced missiles. They build like ICM, all these most advanced technical like nuclear weapons. That's why America, like Trump, goes away all the way to Singapore to meet Kim Jong-un, because North Korea's military power is that like threatening, and they spend billions of dollars on making these nukes. And the Kim Jong-un, the Kims, the dictators, on purpose not to feed us. Because imagine if you are fed, now you're going to start reading books. Now you're going to start thinking about the meaning of life. You're going to do art. You're going to do, you want to have your hobby. You want to think about more than surviving. So like if you keep feeding people, they are not going to be obeyed. You're not going to be able to control them. That is why the regime so cautious, calculating not to feed us. So all we can think is not about revolution, not about freedom, not about how people living. It's about surviving next meal. Can we like survive until like tomorrow? That's all we think as a people.
When you escaped and when you went to China and eventually South Korea, what was that experience like? I've read some horrific things that you experienced when you were going there, with the experience of having to bury your own father at 3 a.m. in the morning, and you and your mother being attacked by men and asking to, trying to rape you. And you listen to these stories. On one end, you don't want to hear these stories because it's so hard to listen to stories, especially as a man who has a kid, and I'm married, I got 3 kids, I got a daughter, and I'm just thinking about those thoughts. But at the same time, if you don't talk about it, then the people around the world are not going to realize how bad things are. So it's very conflicted, because I'm sure you don't enjoy talking about this stuff regularly because it's constant reminder. Yeah. So if you don't mind, if you're comfortable sharing with that, do you mind sharing with us what were some of those things that happened to you on your way to South Korea?
I know. I think I'm so grateful what you just mentioned. Like you actually, when you began our interview, you said like, oh, this is a story that what CNN or MSNBC or Fox doesn't talk about, right? Right now in China in 2020, there are about 300 North Korean defectors in China right now, are hiding and being sold as a human slaves right now. And I was one of them. We hear about these Boko Haram girls. We talk about these girls captured by ISIS. We give them Nobel Peace Prize, and we know these girls exist, but we don't talk about the women who are being sold, like the ISIS like captures in China, because China is everyone has economic interest in China in this world right now. So they purposely ignore us that we exist. And so when I escaped to China in 2007, I was 13 years old. My sister, a few days before me, escaped. I wanted to go with her, but because I had like a very bad stomach ache, my parents took me to a hospital. But in North Korea, we don't have like X-ray machines and see what's wrong with you. Literally, just doctor rub your belly and say, "Oh my God, I think she got some like appendix. She needs to do the surgery right now, otherwise it's gonna pop this afternoon." So that afternoon, they cut my belly open without any painkiller. And then like what they found was not even appendix. It was just like infection and malnutrition. That's why I had a very bad stomach ache. And they still like removed my appendix. I was keep fainting. And it's a very common thing. We just do surgery, like no painkiller in North Korea. They like cut bones when there's no painkiller. And what shocked me the most is like nurse in the hospital, she literally uses a 1 meter to inject everybody. And like you use like beer bottles to add a drop, and you see like dead bodies right in from hospital like piled up, and you see like rats eating human eyes first, and you see also kids chasing those rats, because even rats are very precious like protein. And kids eat those rats, but those rats have some infection by eating human flesh, I heard. So kids die, then rats eat us back. And And that's the point we thought, like, we gotta get out of here. Even if we die on the journey, we are gonna get out of here. So my sister escaped at 16 with her friend. And a few days later, as soon as I got out of the hospital, my mom and I followed her to China through a broker, but we didn't ask why this broker was helping us. We were so desperate. We didn't even it didn't really matter why that person was helping us. We were dying anyway. So we crossed the frozen river from China to and North Korea to China. But when I started crossing, it sounds very easy crossing the river, right? But every few meters in North Korea inside, there are guards with machine guns standing there, and they have the shoot to kill order. So if they see anyone crossing the frozen river, you don't need to even ask them to wait. You can just shoot them, and that is the order from the regime. But the broker that we were following had bribed the guards on that spot. So we were able to cross it without getting shot. But if you want to cross without broker, you're going to get shot. That's why most of North Koreans cannot escape. As soon as we arrived in China side, the first thing I was saying, my mom was being raped by this Chinese broker. And he was trying to rape me, but I just got up, I was 60 something pounds. I'm still 80 pounds, but I was way smaller. And my mom was protecting me. And then they said, if you want to survive in China, you have to be sold as sexual slaves. It was 2007, 21st century. I never thought we can sell human beings like dogs, puppies, right? These Chinese brokers came negotiating our price real puppies on the market. And my mom was sold for, in this 21st century, for $65. Less than my phone in my hand. And my price was higher than hers, over $200, because I was a virgin. So they paid less than $300 to buy me and separating me from my mom. So I got separated from my mom at 13 right there. She sold to a farmer, and they sold me to another broker. And the man who bought me, he was already married. He was a lot older than me, but he said, "Oh, I want to keep you. You're a virgin." Most of North Korean girls actually, by the time they go to the second broker, they all raped, so nobody's virgin. But I fought so hard with the first broker that he wasn't able to successfully to rape me. So the second broker got me as a virgin. I was very precious for that market. I was 13 and virgin. He wanted to keep me for himself. And I was going to kill myself. And he said, "Oh, if you become my mistress, I'm going to bring your parents to me. That he was going to save my parents from me." And I thought, oh, if I sacrifice myself, I can save my father, I can save my mom. That's how I became his mistress at 13. And he bought my mom from a farmer that he sold previously and brought my sick father from North Korea. But my father was in a prison camp and tortured and got a colon cancer. He couldn't make it and passed away a few months later. And that's when I had to bury his ashes in the middle of the night in China, because Chinese authority catch us and send us back to North Korea to be killed, even though that goes against Geneva Convention, that goes against any international law that should protect political prisoners, escapees, because North Koreans are not just economic migrants. When we escape, that means we defy the regime and we become political refugees. So the China has a responsibility to protect us, but they capture us and send us back to North Korea so we can be executed and tortured and sent to prison camp. So only way for North Koreans to survive in China is hiding and being sold and being raped. Eventually, I walked across the Gobi Desert from China to Mongolia in 2009 with my mom, and that's how I became from Mongolia to South Korea. But right now, there are still girls like me, 10, 15 years old, even 10 years old, are being sold in China. But nobody mentions about these women exist because we don't want to upset Chinese regime because they are the almighty God now. They got this economic power.
When you first got to China and you got the experience a little bit of freedom, if you did, was it China that you experienced some freedom, or was it more South Korea when you got a taste of it?
Definitely South Korea. I mean, these guards, these brokers even follow you to your bathroom because they don't want you to run away. We are their property. Of course, they don't treat us like humans. They bought us. They rape us whenever they want. They say like you're less worthy than even pig. Even if I kill you right now, nobody gonna care. No police gonna arrest me. I can kill you if I wanna kill you. I can kill you right now, and that's what these Chinese men like telling us. So there's no dignity. There's no freedom for us in China. Only way for us to be human is going to South Korea or coming to America.
When you went to South Korea and you first experienced freedom, what was your reaction? Was it, I don't believe this, I can't believe this, is this real? Emotional, tears, shock? What was your reaction that you remember?
I think if you are being oppressed from your parents, grandparent generation, right? By the time you're born, you're like numb. That is do you remember the 1984 when Winston comes out, he's just being numb? That's what you are. It's not like when you come out of North Korea, you don't even know what culture shock is. You're like completely numb. You don't even know how to make connections. You don't even know what to be shocked about. It's just like being numbness. It even means I'm still recovering to feel things. I used not feeling a lot of things. And I think a lot of North Koreans do feel that, like you just don't feel things much. And you don't even know when you're supposed to feel something, right? You are just not used to feeling things. And all of that is suppressed. So first time when I was being free, like was someone asking me to introduce myself. And I did not know what introduction was. You know, in North Korea, nobody like introduced themselves, right? And they said like, oh, introduction is easy. You say your name, maybe what's your favorite, like what you like to do, what's your hobby. If you don't even know that, you can tell me what's your favorite color. It's easy. And in North Korea, like the regime told me my favorite color was red because that was a revolutionary color. The regime told me my favorite country was North Korea because that was, so everything was determined for me to answer. And in South Korea, suddenly they're asking me my name, and like, okay, I say my name, and they ask me what's a hobby. Never heard like what hobby was in North Korea. No one can afford to have a hobby. So, being free wasn't like something easy at all. It was so painful. At some point, I thought like, if someone not gonna kill me and giving me enough food in North Korea, like just keep giving me like frozen potatoes and no one like hurt me, I actually would go back to a place where everything was decided for me. Because understanding freedom was a responsibility, was a scary, right? If I choose to become, let's say, dancer, right, I have to be responsible for that choice for the rest of my life. Wow. And that was insanely scary idea. I had to choose.
Unbelievable what you just said.
Yeah, being free is not easy. You think it's easy, and it is not. I think that's why a lot of people actually asking for government to be choosing for you, because it is only a courageous person be free and onto their own like choice, and take that as like accountability. It is a very hard thing to do.
you know, the way you put it, especially since your entire life somebody has made decisions for you, and now it's all on you. So
Yeah.
you're no longer relying on somebody where they've told you what to do. Now you got to decide for yourself. So what do you want to do? And you're kind of confused. You're afraid. You don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Was there an element of saying, oh my gosh, I have too much freedom right now, I kind of want to go back? Was there any feeling like that, or not at all? You were saying there's no, I'll take anything except the life I had in North Korea.
I definitely, for sure, definitely not outside North Korea. But the thing is that if there was some kind of miracle exist, saying that the regime is not gonna kill me and give me food for the rest of my life, not even good food, just like frozen potatoes, even that's enough, then I'm like, I would go back. That's what I said. I was like, and some defectors, believe it or not, do go back.
Oh, I totally understand. I totally get that part. What was the tipping point for you where you said, I think I got this. I think I can stand on my own 2 feet, and I think I'm going to go out there and spread my wings. Was it books? Was it a friend? Was it a teacher? Was it a professor? Was it a coworker? What was it?
I think to change somebody's life, I don't know. Like a lot of people say, like, oh, this is a moment I changed in my life. But of course, books was the beginning. I think in South Korea, I was so discriminated by South Koreans. The books was only the one that I could like rely on. And also the thing, another challenge is that, you know, when I arrived in South Korea, these people saying, oh, Korean was started by Kim Il-sung, by North Koreans. It's like, oh, that was started by South and American bastards. What are you talking about? And they say, oh, Kims are not gods. They're just dictators. And at some point, I was like, I had trusting issues. Like, so if everything that I believed until like this point was a lie, how do I know that you are not lying? Like, it is such a question. Like, if right now, I'm coming to you like, Patrick, everything you believe is a lie. Do not believe anything. And then you're going to be like, how do I know you are not lying to me then?
Mm-hmm.
If everybody told me it was a lie, right? It was like that. And then I couldn't trust people. And that's when I read George Orwell's Animal Farm. And then I read 1984 afterwards, and I was like, oh, this makes sense. This really makes sense. And then I started reading more and getting to more things and believing things and understanding what happened. But until that point, I just like, I don't know. I don't think I can trust anyone again.
Which character in Animal Farm did you relate to the most? I mean, obviously there's the pigs and the Napoleon and all, the donkey. Who did you relate to the most?
Do you remember the last, towards the end, there's new pigs are being born and they don't know what life was like in before.
Mm-hmm.
That was me. My grandma knew what it was like before Kim. My grandmother lived under the Japanese colonization, so she worked before Kim, but because they kept silent. By the time when I was born, my universe was Kim. The human evolution started with Kim. Like in North Korea, the calendar begins with Kim Il-sung's birthday. Yes, Juche-1. That is our calendar. Kim Il-sung, when he was born, that's when North Korean calendar starts. We have a different time than even our time begins differently. And we have a saying, we are not Asians. We are not like some East Asian. We are Kim Il-sung people. We are Kim Il-sung race. That's what they say. We are Kim Il-sung race. We are not Asians in North Korea. So in that book, I wasn't like angry for my grandmom generation who kept silent, but it was so sad. By that new generation, that new pigs don't even know the time before what it was like. And that's when I realized, oh, that's what happened to me. And I think this is why I need to understand what my grandma went through, what my parents went through, what I am going through.
Uh, fascinating, by the way. Did Kim Jong-un, I mean, his family, his father, did they think they're God? Is that how they saw themselves? Like, is it a second coming? How do they view themselves?
I
Is it more prophet or is it more God?
Oh, definitely prophet. I mean, definitely God. It's not
Okay.
a prophet level. It's like Kim Il Sung is a God, the Almighty God who can do perfectly anything. Like when the Bible explains, you are a mere human being. You cannot understand the God's the perception. You cannot challenge God's
Mhm.
logic. You got all this higher logic, right?
Yeah.
So it's like why there's a misery. That's God's way. Then it explains everything. You don't need the logic to explain God's way. So that is what they do. Like we don't need to ask for logic or making any sense because it's God. We cannot understand possible God's that higher intention. So they only can do that when they are being God.
You know,
So
there was a movie. I don't know if you've seen the Book of Eli. You ever seen the movie Book of Eli with Denzel Washington or no? Where he's blind and he has this book that he has to touch, and that's how he reads the Bible. And this one man is trying to get the Bible because back then people weren't reading, and he said, if I can get the Bible, I can control people's minds, but I can't teach them how to read because if they stay dumb, I can control them and lead them. It just takes me there. But you and I, when you and I were talking offline, I was showing this painting. I showed you these two different books, and you said you read both of them. One of them is Communist Manifesto. The other one is Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand,
yeah,
and the other one is by Karl Marx. You had a chance to read both of them, yes?
I read 80% Atlas Shrugged.
Okay, it's a big book. It's a very big book.
I read 5 times of Communist Manifesto. Not because it was good. Because in North Korea, I was like, I just wanted to read that book. Why this book, this ideology killed that many people? In this world, nothing has killed more than communism. Like Mao killed 50 to 60 million people. I mean, can you, like Stalin, nothing. Not even Nazism, not even poverty, not even like a nuclear war. Nothing killed more than communism in this world, in human history. And that's why I was like, I just had to read this damn thing. Like, what was this that destroyed my people, it killed my father. It killed my father. And I just had to read it and reading and just made no sense. And then it's like I just stopped there. I was like, okay, there's no point of me keep reading because I just wanted to understand the mindset why they were doing this. But it's just so evil. You sound like so nice, but what it comes to is so evilness, the greed of power, control, and you do not respect you don't trust the human decency, and you believe you have to control them, and like collectives and all of this is like complete disrespect the human dignity.
Why do you think the concept of socialism and communism and folks like Bernie Sanders or AOC or even a younger crowd that's coming up right now? The other day, an article came out from Harvard saying 57% of the youth accept socialism as a way and they think capitalism is bad. Why do you think in a country where you and I couldn't wait to get to, because this is our dream, right? All these freedoms, why do you think this concept of socialism and communism is so attractive in the US educational system with many politicians today in America saying America's a bad country? I mean, I read an article that came out yesterday written by Business Insider by Margaret Ward. What's her last name? Margaret, something like that, where she said the top 5 best countries to raise kids in and the top 5 worst countries to raise kids in. I think the top 5 worst, 5th place was Bulgaria, 4th place was Turkey. I don't remember who 3rd place was. 2nd place was US as the worst country to raise kids in. And 1st place was Mexico. And this whole concept of Americans bashing America, that we should go to European or socialism or communism is not really that bad. Why do you think that's happening in America? And how do you view it when people start saying things like that?
I absolutely have no I think I can understand why some people are saying that, because, you know, communism was tried. And whenever it was tried, it failed, right? But people bought it at that time. Like people started following Lenin, and like they all did, they followed, they bought the idea. So I can see how appealing the idea is.
Got it.
And especially to young people who, a lot of people don't pay, when you're young, don't pay taxes, right? You don't work, you don't actually understand how the economy really works. And also I think because now life is so easy, right? Like when you're born, your mortality rate is so low, especially in the US. I think this generation expects life to be easy. That's what their expectation is. And like you and I know, you're born in Iran, I was born in North Korea. You know that our ancestors from go back into the time, life was so difficult for them. People like fantasize about old days, like no, old days people died from cancer, so many different things. Nowadays a lot of cancers can even curable. Here in America, people say, like doctors say, colon cancer a lot of times it can be cured. My father never had to die if he was in freedom. He only died because he was in communist, socialist, communist China and communist, socialist North Korea. And I think just the only thing is that, I mean, if there's no capitalism, the people I'm sure you're gonna see this, gonna criticize, they're not gonna have YouTube. They're not gonna have Twitter. Without capitalism, how any of this is possible? Capitalism is making it available for us to have all of this, have excessive food, have opportunity, have all the devices that we own today, even Zoom. Do you think you can find Zoom in North Korea? No, there's no Skype in North Korea. Without capitalism, how do we have any of this? And I think just they don't. And I think for me, it's like it's just I mean, like, if you worship communism and socialism that much, just go to North Korea. Why don't you just immigrate to North Korea? Because like everyone wants to come to US. That's why everyone's coming here, and all these people like, why don't you open the border and give everybody citizenship and let them in, right? That's how demanding Americans are. American citizenship is. So I mean, do North Korea have that problem? So if those people really want that kind of system, I think they just should immigrate to those places. Because, like, I mean, that is my ideology. If you're going to worship to me about like the greatness socialism, go to North Korea. It is the last country that pure holds this ideology. So it's that easy. Like, it's not, North Korea is not that far away. It's in our planet. They can go and have their dream of this being socialist.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes from somebody like you who has seen things a lot, you have lived the life of thousands of people in one. It's not the life. I mean, you can't compare the things you've witnessed in your eyes. Like if somebody was to close their eyes, they create a technology to connect my brain to yours, and within a 5-minute period, I can witness all the things you've witnessed, the level of pain my body would go to, I probably would pass out if I was able to witness the stuff that you've seen with your own eyes. Painful stuff you talk about that doesn't sound real to the average person, that you only see this stuff in a movie, but you've experienced it. So your point of view is coming from a different point of view. And sometimes when you're born in America, in the most incredible country in the world, that people have not seen anything else, all they want to see is the things that it does wrong. They have no clue how bad it is in other places and how many people would love to come to a place like this. One thing I was wondering about you is you said something, you said, I mean, I could not trust men again. I hated men. I hated humanity. How on earth can people sell each other, right? And today you're married and you have a kid. You got married, I think, in 2018 to a gentleman named Ezekiel, if I'm saying it correctly.
Yeah.
Yes. And how did that transition for you take place? Sometimes people go through a bad breakup. They'll say, "Oh, he cheated on me. I will never date another guy ever again. They're all dogs. They're all this stuff." Yeah. I mean, you experienced tremendous pain. How were you able to go through this pain to say, I can love another man and continue with my life? How do you go through that transition?
I think so. I am married to American bastard. The American bastards I learned to care and hate with everything I had. He is American bastard. He is like has a European heritage too. So he's pure monster in the eyes of North Korean regime. I would be like that too right now to marrying to them. It's international is not marriage is not allowed in North Korea. And I have a son with him. And in my son's birth certificate, it says mother is North Korean and father is American. And when I got that birth certificate like more than 2 years ago in Chicago hospital, this is like a pure miracle. You know, this is only possible in a country like America. It is only possible in freedom. And that a baby half North Korean and American can be born. That is only few countries in this world we can do. That is America. As a rape victim, I was raped. I was shamed in South Korea. As a colorful person, as a refugee, as a defector, all of those things, I have been welcomed by this country and people in this country. I think when I came to America, I met like gay man, right? He's like my stepbrother, but in North Korea, I never heard the gay was. Like there's no word gay in dictionary. So when he like met me, gave me a hug. I was like, "Don't worry, baby, I'm gay." And I was like, "What the heck is he talking about? Why are you even hugging me?" Like and I went to hotel room, I looked it up, gay, and I was like, "Oh, that's what it meant." But I think just being in this country, seeing people just accepted who they are. And I think that was a point of me to overcoming it. But it was just so many people's kindness. It was really so many people like you know, sympathized with my story and wasn't saying that I was dirty or like any of that. I think you're just really meeting a lot of good, kind people, open-hearted people. I think that healed me. And by the time when I my husband, of course, in the beginning, I was very suspicious. I thought like, you know, my first time being with a man was being raped. How can I possibly think of anything good of them? But I think, you know, eventually with a lot of support and love, I overcame it. And now I have a son, and wonderful son. And my father was a man too. And I think it was, you know, when you're traumatized, you cannot be really rational. That is the, I think, most difficult part. You cannot really tap into your logic.
Mm-hmm.
Fear comes, you're guarded and you're very scared. But I think really also understanding what trauma was. You know, I never knew what trauma was until coming to America, and really understanding what trauma does to your brain and your feelings, all of it really helped me to overcome a lot of my, you know, past experience.
Well, that says a lot about your character. Says a lot about your character of who you are, and I salute you for that, because that's not easy to do, especially for somebody like you. And that means a part of it also means how much you loved your father. You know, it's to be able to have a fond memory of your father, where you say other men like him are out there that are willing to do anything for their daughter. That says a lot about who your father was. And obviously I don't know the story about your father, but it says a lot about who your father was. You know, you said something about Trump earlier when he went in, met with Kim Jong-un. How do you view Trump from this point of view? So I kind of want to set the whole thing up, and you tell me how you view him. So here's a man in America who's the president, the most powerful man in the world today. And on one end, he goes and meets with Kim Jong-un to try to potentially prevent him and persuade him to not do any kind of nuclear, because South Korea is a ally, and we have military bases in South Korea. Army has Camp Casey, and you know he's trying to negotiate to kind of get him on his side. Trump is. And you know how you view him because you live there. You know exactly what life is like living there. And so to see him go there saying, why would you go meet with the modern day, let's just say Hitler? You've said that before. But then on the other side, you see him go after China, that has hurt a lot of people, a lot of underground, you know, concentrate, a lot of things that you read about that almost, again, doesn't seem real. And you see a lot of people in America that are afraid of saying anything bad about China because They either have business dealings or they're making money, or if it's whether it's Hollywood envy or some politicians. So here's the same man that on one side meets with the dictator that you lived under, and at the same time goes against a regime that everybody fears, China. How do you view how Trump's doing as a president when it comes down to these two relationships?
I'm so glad you asked that question, because this is like what I learned. I think from my journey, of course, I learned to be how to survive. But I think one thing that I learned the most is like really what it means to be a human, right? Most of things in life is not black and white. Of course, like Hitler was pure black evil. I do think Kim Jong-un is pure evil. There's some things we cannot discuss. Either it's black or white, right? Some things I think we have to make them like they are completely black, they are evil. But most of things are not. And I think even the man who born me, who raped me at 13, who I wanted to kill, but he eventually freed me to go to South Korea. That's what humans are. Like, we are complex creatures. I forgave that man who born me and raped me. And I actually even helped that man who was sent to prison. And when he got out of the prison in China 10 years later, I helped him. That's how I forgave him for that. But I think with Trump too, I think a lot of people think because I criticized Trump for North Korea with one meeting, that doesn't make Trump black. I definitely understand Trump's side, why he is from business background. And he doesn't understand when he meets a head of state, the connotation in it. In North Korean people's mind, if the leader of free world meets our dear leader, that makes our dear leader very legit. Trump, I'm sure, would not get that as much. And I'm sure also he is a deal maker. He used to make a lot of deals. So he thought without even North Korea's any pre-concession, he can go in and maybe convince Kim Jong-un and come to out of the inner tunnel. But because he is the president of this country, I do have a higher expectation for him. Given North Korea history, this regime kept this going for over 70 years. Less than 20, over 20 years, it's going to be 100 years, 1 century. North Korea has been doing this. So Trump cannot be just going in like one setting, I'm going to convince this guy out of 70 years of this history, going to ask him to change. That's not going to happen. So that is the part that I was criticizing Trump for. But that does not mean I was criticizing every single thing that Trump was doing as a president. And I think it goes to Obama, it goes to any president. I do think there are every president has pros and cons. They do sometimes make mistakes. They do right things. So it's not like I, go against everything that Trump does. But I do completely understand that the negative effect that Trump brought for the summit, because that made Kim Jong-un even powerful god now. Even though the most powerful country is backing this dear leader, and he, complimenting Kim Jong-un, saying like his people loving him, and he's a great leader, he's a tough guy, and that video to North Korean people and saying like, look at him, even though American presidents are worshiping our dear leader, and that was the problem that with the tourists going into North Korea. Do you know there used to be a lot of tourists going into North Korea? A lot of Western tourists went to North Korea. It's almost like visiting, these concentration camps. People are like enslaved, but you have money, you can go and sing this like the zoo or like, the roller coaster place that Kim Jong created for you to see. So when you go to tour in North Korea, you only can go see the guided places the regime allows you to see. You have to go with the guys. You cannot. And do you remember like the Otto Warmbier, the American college boy, eventually died because he was trying? Yeah, like tours happening, and they have no freedom whatsoever. But when these people go, they have to bow in front of statue of Kim Il Sung and Kim Jong Il, and that shows to North Koreans. They say everybody wants to be like North Korea. Everybody wants to come to North Korea. Look at these white people. Look at them bowing in front of statue of their leaders. They respect their leaders more than like we do. So that's how lucky we are to have our dear leaders. So that all information being backplayed. That is why I was really against Trump going to meet North Korea Kim Jong without any concession, without any much planning. And look at it, what the result. I mean, I sat there, nothing can happen, nothing happened. So that is the really only like context of me engaging with like his policy.
How do you view on how he is challenging and pushing and giving a hard time with tariffs and bans and all this other stuff when it comes down to China and the way he's been dealing with China?
I do wish, of course, Trump, when it comes to China, I do agree. Communist Chinese regime is the biggest threat to humanity right now. We talk about like climate change, talk about a lot of things, even pandemic, but the harm that they cause is not as little as the Chinese communist regime does to so many places in this world. There are Muslims and going into concentration camps right now. You see these millions of Muslims, right? These minority groups, they are being sent to prison camp. There's a massive the violation of privacy on Chinese people. And then people who speak out, I do think Trump did a lot of raising that issue, but I wish he does also focusing on human rights angle. It's not all about just business, trying to bring the business back to America and save the economy, but I do wish that he also understands how the regime, Chinese communist regime, is like backing this terrorist North Korea and keeping these 25 million people as slaves. And how they also in other regions, like women from Burma in like Myanmar, other regions are sent to China to be married these farmers in China right now. Because of the one-child policy, there are lack of women. And that is why I was being sold as a child bride in China. But North Korean women are not the only women being sold as brides. A lot of other countries' women are also being affected by this, Chinese the one-child policy and all of this current policy. So I hope that Trump, he's doing a lot already on China, but I hope he keep doing it and doing more and bringing more issues and bringing lights on other issues that people didn't know were in the past.
So ideally, what would you like to see happen? So what's going on in North Korea, and what's going on in China. Ideally, what would you like to see happen that's possible of happening? And how does Trump or anybody go about making this become a reality?
When it comes to saving North Korea?
So one is to show the world what is going on with North Korea instead of being an ally, because the threat is if Trump pushes too hard, Kim Jong-un is capable of doing anything. He's capable of, putting a nuclear war, a bomb in South Korea, and then that's going to be on his hands. So if he pushes too hard, Kim Jong may do something. So how do you go about addressing this challenge that's taking place in North Korea, as well as what's going on with trafficking and human rights in China?
So I think that is, so North Korea only exists because of Chinese Communist Party. No country in the world can have a trade with North Korea because the dictatorship, it's been like banned by the UN resolution. So China does go against the UN resolution and keep aiding North Korea regime. I'm not saying people, the regime. I think one thing that people keep confusing is that whenever I say Communist Party is very different from the Chinese people. I love Chinese people. I love Chinese food. I speak Chinese. I love everything about China. I love all of their like inventions in history. But I'm talking about right now the current regime, the Communist Party, and that party almost sponsors dictatorship in North Korea. The one thing gonna change North Korea is cutting the oil. Imagine. North Korea is not oil producing country. If you stop giving them oil, how they're gonna test the missile? How they're gonna keep building missiles? China is giving them oil, so North Korea is keep building missiles and advance their technology when it comes to weapons. I'm not saying cutting the food. I'm not saying cutting medical supplies, cutting the oil so North Korea cannot build any more missiles. But China is keep giving them oil. And I think that is why people just don't know what a threat the Chinese Communist Party and North Korean regime is to the world. That is doable. I mean, China was the first president to brought that to solve North Korea, we need to talk to China. It is very true because if you solve the relationship with China, China will solve North Korea right away. But they use almost like North Korea as kind of a buffer zone from democracy coming into China from South Korea and Japan and America. So eventually, I do think American president, whoever comes in next, or even Trump is gonna be, they need to focusing on negotiating with China, even on North Korea, on everything, because China got all the right kids. And if China cuts down that oil supply, North Korea gonna collapse because how the deal leader gonna drive his car to visit his luxury resort? How all these elite officials in Pyongyang gonna drive around having their meetings? No one can do anything. And if China wants to help people, give them food. Food is fine, but don't give them oil. Don't give them anything that helps building nukes. But China doesn't. They keep going against and giving them oil all the time.
Wow.
And that's how easy it is.
So if I understand you correctly, is if China doesn't support North Korea, no one else in the world is going to help and support North Korea.
Nobody can.
Okay, because of UN. Because of UN, nobody can.
Yeah, nobody can. It's all breaking the laws. So only China illegally trading with North Korea.
So China is the only one that goes against the UN resolution that we have, that they go out and they said, we're going to help them out anyways, whether you like it or not, we're going to do that. Okay.
Yes.
Now, China just brokered a deal with Iran for $400 billion. And we know what that deal is all about. This is just the last month. You can go look it up. It's a $400 billion deal with Iran. It's a long-term relationship. So you know who Iran's against, everybody, including U.S. You just saw a deal that happened yesterday with Israel and UAE. And am I saying it right? UAE, yes. United Arab, yes. And then you're seeing China now support. So it doesn't seem like the right way for Trump. Negotiating with North Korea means nothing because nothing's going to get done. No. The only way to get anything done with North Korea is to get things done with China.
Yes.
So step number one for you would be to help anything with human trafficking or human rights or socialism, communism, any of that stuff, is making sure the pressure is put more on China and forget about North Korea. Because if you solve China, then you're going to be fine with North Korea. Am I hearing you correctly?
Exactly. I think people think there's no way we're going to talk over to Kim Jong-un and he change his mind. He's not going to change his mind. The elites in North Korea are living like kings. Imagine being a god in 21st century with all kinds of this technological advance. The best, king ever exists in human history. So they're not going to give that up. And I think only way we can achieve that goal is through Chinese Communist Party. But so far, they don't care about human rights. They don't care about freedom. They don't care about anything. They just care about their status quo and maintaining whatever they've been doing, this stability. And that stability means there's no parallel what is happening to North Koreans. That is what the UN said. The only resemblance we find what is happening to North Korean people is the Nazi, during Hitler time, or Stalin, Soviet Union, those concentration camps. North Korea, the country, is a concentration camp. The entire country is served with wire fences. You don't think of course inside there's another more worse concentration camps, but nobody can leave North Korea without permission. And only few can leave the country, and you cannot go to North Korea right now and see. I do say there are people like Elon Musk wants to go to different planet and occupy Mars. The moon, right? I do think somehow we might go to the universe, the different planet before we land North Korea fully as a human race. That's how North Korea is left out from the rest of the humanity. And I do think it is time to bring them to our human race. And as we moving forward, how can we leave 25 millions like there in that darkness? Like, what does that to say our morality, right? Like, I do think this is a challenge that anyone should ask. Like, even the US president, they should like, it is so sad like how this country is being like this for over 70 years, and still like all this political interest, everything comes first, and just like these issues are being buried completely like this.
Let me first of all, you got to be nominated for a Nobel Prize. Have they ever contacted you? Have you ever spoken to anybody about Nobel Prize? Because
No, that is
you have what you've experienced and what you're talking about that's gotten hundreds of millions of views, which at this point, if you combine Facebook, say billion plus views, it's something that the world needs to know more about. And I think there needs to be a form of nomination on your end. But have you ever spoken to anybody from Trump's camp, or no? Has anybody from Trump's camp ever reached out to you, or no?
I mean, not from his campaign directly. I mean, when Hillary Clinton was running the campaign, I met her and she wanted to do some. I mean, she was going to do some, but everybody says that. I met like Nancy Pelosi, and she was like, "Oh, I really have my heart for North Korean people. I want to do something for it." But it is all politicians saying it, and I don't think anyone here genuinely caring what people going through in oppression. Right? There are so many people are oppressed, and I think it is nobody's interest. They just want to do what is like politically right. What
I
is give them more likes and votes.
I think there are more people. I think there are more people, and the right people watch this channel, just so you know. And we're going to make sure they get a chance to at least hear your side of the story and find a way to get a hold of you. Because every time I've interviewed a lot of people. I've sat down with President Bush. I've sat down with politicians, billionaires, millionaires, athletes, celebrities, Hollywood, con artists, mobsters. It doesn't matter. I've sat down with everybody. I've sat down with so many different personalities, and I just enjoy getting to know people and hearing people's stories. Every single time I ask you a question, and I said, I don't know if our answer is going to have that much depth in it. Let's see how layer of deep your answer is going to be, okay? And most people go 2 layers deep, 3 layers deep. Every question I ask you, your answer's depth was so deep where I'm walking away learning from you, and I'm 15 years older than you. I think you're 26. Are you 26 now, or you're 26 years old now? And very, very fascinating. What are some of your aspirations? I know you've written a book. I know you have this book out, which we're going to put the link below for people to be able to go out there and get it in order to live. We'll put the link below. I think on Amazon, it has 1,800 reviews, and it's all 5-star. People obviously love it from reading it. And we've only had an hour and a half, hour and 20 minutes to go through stuff. But what are some of your aspirations? Because with your life experience and what you've done, you got a very big upside. I'm just curious to know what some of your aspirations are.
I think 2 things I think I want at this point. I mean, in the past, it was like, as you said, right? I felt like I lived for 1,000 years. I felt like so exhausted. I felt so old, and I'm like only 26 too. And having a baby changes a lot about it. But I think one is definitely helping my people, because it does like heartbreak, right? In America, our problem is having too much. I never understood having too much could be a problem. And also, having no problem can be a problem too. And I just never understood this. Like, this really, I just see this here, like having too much and having no problem is a problem. And how do I keep my perspective and not getting into this universe of, complaining about having too much and not having actual real problems. And I think that's what my goal, trying to maintain my root. Some of them is really bad. I do want to get rid of those, like the tradition that I learned from the regime. I do want to get rid of it, but some of them I do want to preserve, is really keeping that perspective. And I want to help my people, because do you know how many North Korean defectors right now in America from that's over 70 years of time? 200. Like 200 made it to America from North Korea. Like, what is the mathematical chance of me crossing the desert, coming here in America, and speaking and talking to you right now? And I am not religious, but I do feel that responsibility. I do feel that special chosen one, because just mathematically it doesn't make any sense. And as someone, I think, we exist, we live, these victims do exist of this human trafficking and this regime, but you don't see a lot of like defectors coming like Iran. I know a lot of activists from Iran, the women's like rights, but not from North Korea, because one, even after they escape, I spoke out. You saw that video, right? In 2014, I gave everyone your word.
Whole thing, yeah.
2 months later, I don't even think 2 months later, North Korean regime captured all my family, my nephews, my cousins, even my neighbors. Anyone knew me, put into propaganda video on YouTube, and they all got vanished because I spoke out after my escape. So you think like I'm free right now, but I'm not free. Defectors, after they escape, they are not still free. They're assassinated. They actually regime. Like Kim Jong-nam got like poisoned. Kim Jong, the brother of Kim Jong in Malaysia, he poisoned his brother in where there's CCTVs. Of course, he doesn't care killing a defector. Who cares? Nobody gonna bother him. So he cares a lot of defectors who speak out. Not only them, the family members who's left behind. So defectors, when they escape and speak out, they still pay so much price to have the voice and have this presence. Unlike a lot of other countries, when they escape, they are almost like done with that country and they can like move forward. But defectors, us, we cannot move forward. We still like get threat. I'm on the top like list of the regime. Kim Jong-un, of course, wants to scare me. And I think that's why I do want to be free someday from this regime, from this dictator completely, so I can say whatever I want and I don't get that threats. And no one dies in my family because of what I say. I think my journey to freedom still continues. I think I'm going to fight until I die, until I completely free from this dictator. And also, I do want to be, grateful and happy here, because that's where we are. And I think life is about being grateful. I don't think every day I try not to be bitter, and I try to be just so grateful. I think when my sister, I found her 7 years later, she was so bitter and she has this like self-pity going on. And I was like, what is the point of you surviving all of that insanity through, and now you're here, you're complaining about what you've gone through? Like, I remember like when I was writing my book, my publisher said like, Yeon-mi, you're traumatized, you have to get some therapy. It's like, what's the therapy? And like, she told me, oh, here people having difficulties, they have to go like therapy. And I asked her, okay, so how much is it? It was in New York, it was like over $200 per hour. I was like, no way I can afford it. No, thank you for therapy. So I didn't get therapy. I think therapies are, if you can get it, it's great. But my point is that like, it was so hard to survive it through and make it this far. And I am not gonna be like here, like complaining about how difficult it was, And I think that is what I want my people to do when they come out of this tunnel. They don't feel bad about what they gone through, but they're just grateful.
First of all, I think you're just getting warmed up with what you're going to do in the world. I think your impact is just getting warmed up. There are certain people that you talk to, you can tell, some tell a story and yes, they want to share the story, but some are true believers at the highest level. You are a true believer, and true believers are dangerous. I'm not surprised why North Korea is not happy with you, because it doesn't sound like you're going to stop until you get what you want. And people like that are very hard to find. Most people would just go and just want to be quiet and just live a regular life and not say anything because they don't want more trouble. But to have courage at the level that you have, Aristotle said the highest level of quality for a human being to have is courage, and you have that. And that says a lot about the fabric of your character. And I applaud you and I salute you for being who you are. And I thank you once again for making some time and being a guest on Valuetainment. And I look forward to bringing you back again when other events takes place to talk to you, because this has truly been a distinct pleasure of mine to have a conversation with you. It's been amazing. So thank you so much for your time.
It's been a real honor. Thank you so much, Patrick.
Now, obviously, this is probably one of the most unique interviews we've ever done for somebody to give the experience of what it is to live in North Korea for 13 years and escape and go to China, then go to South Korea, then come over here, then be somebody that read as much as she did, and to get herself to this point. What an inspirational story, right? What an inspirational story. I want to hear your thoughts. Comment below. I got 2 other videos I want you to watch if you enjoyed this one. One of them is with an attorney that was in China for 20 years as an attorney, Gordon Chang. If you've not seen this, he explains the conditions in China in ways you probably never heard before. And the other one is with from Epoch Times, where I sat with one of their reporters, where he explained the methods China's using and how they're treating their people that nobody else is hearing about. Click on either one of them that you want to watch. And if you've not subscribed to the channel, please do so. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.